Hi, Thelma. It's good to see you, my friend. Looks like the others are running a little late this morning, but we'll hang out and wait for them for just a minute before we get going. We are going to work on alcohol inks today, and I agree with you. I love them too. Such fun. And I have some fun and interesting things to show you today, I think. There's Sharma and there's Irene. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Welcome, my friends. Okay, we actually have quite a bit to do in the time we'll be together today. I have so much material in alcohol ink, I think we could have an ink 3. But I'm going to start by doing a little experiment with you that I did with my folks in class, and I just could not believe how much difference there was when we did this little test. So I'm going to do this little test with you guys too. Go ahead and drop the camera down, please. I have different kinds of paper here. It's all paper that is said to be useful with alcohol ink. I have 5 kinds. I'll tell you what they are until we're done.
Say hi to Terry and Catherine.
Hi, Terry, and hi, Catherine. So we're going to start today by just doing a little experimenting.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, Adeline. Hi, Kim. So, let me get this jar of alcohol ink out for a minute. And I'm going to use Ranger inks. Not because there's anything particular about Ranger inks that I need, just that we'll hold that constant for our experiment. Yellow. A lot of my inks now are different kinds. I have to make sure I have the right ones. Okay, those are regulars. This is regular. This is regular. We should have enough here to get us going. And then I'm going to set these all aside because we could use those for our next work that we do. And talk about the kinds of alcohol ink a little bit. You remember last time we did this, we had we tried a variety of techniques for applying our ink, and we'll use some of those today, but we're not going to go back through and reteach those. All right. Are we ready? So I have papers numbered 1 to 5 here in front of me. And all of these papers are said to be suitable for alcohol ink. Move the bottle so you can see around it.
We don't see one.
Excuse me?
We don't see any numbers.
You don't, but I have them on the back.
Uh-huh.
So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop some ink onto these papers, and let's see how they behave. I mean, that's simple, isn't it? Let's just see what they do when they get a little ink on them. Number 1's running. Number 2's staying in a tight dot. Number 3's spreading somewhat. Number 4 is spreading a little. And yes, we still have to have plenty of colors. We have to have colors because that's kind of who we are, right? Look at the difference between us. Look at number 2 and number 4. Just the difference of what they're doing. Isn't that something? This is just a demo of papers only. They're for alcohol inks. They're called substrates. This really isn't paper, by the way. Most alcohol ink paper is actually a plastic craft paper. I want to see if they'll blend or streak or yes. But that's actually an accurate depiction because every pack I got of this paper was bowed in the center. So if you get a pack of this from me, it's going to be bowed in the center. So it's actually a pretty accurate depiction. But look at what's happening here. This is just very interesting. We've got these two dots really got big and spread, as did these two. This one stayed fairly compact, but it's trying to spread. That first one's trying to spread a little bit because it's going off the page. And number 2 is just still sitting there with really tight lines. Let's add a little. Let's add a little blending solution. Just a dot, maybe 2, if I miscalculate. A little blending solution to it. And just see how it changes the picture. I got 3 on that one. It wasn't intentional, but it's okay. Add a little blending solution and just see what happens with our colors. My purpose in going through this is because I wanted to show you that a lot of what happens with alcohol ink depends on what paper you're using. I've got my little blower tool here, and I'm going to try and create some little spreading from the main part of the ink. I have a bigger one. I'm going to try the bigger one. And I can get it to move a little bit. How about this one that hasn't moved at all? Oh, that's good. Yeah, that does some nice spreading when I apply some. When I apply may need a little more solution because it's drying by the time that I'm getting around to all 5. So not trying to cheat and give any paper an advantage. I just want to see how different things react to it. This one definitely has some ink on it, I can see. Let's give this a little shot. Blending solution. Let's see what kinds of movement we can get from that. And then we've got this number 5 that's just sitting here. I can get a little bit of movement from it. Moving around, I like the colors we're getting on these. I think they're pretty. Now, let's take a look at some of these individually. I have identified what my packs are here. Pull this up. Okay, number 1 is paper from Dress My Craft. No, Little Birdie. This is the alcohol ink paper from Little Birdie. You can see, and we'll try this in a second, actually try using a dauber on here, that if you were just going to use this as a background and you were going to daub color onto it and maybe marble, that kind of thing, I think you'd be okay, although we'll try it. This paper is like $2.99 for, I don't know, 5 sheets or something like that, which is a really exceptionally good price. But that exceptionally good price comes with very limited performance. So depending on what you were doing, if you were only creating marbled backgrounds, it'd probably be okay, but it might not. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 number 2. Yes. No. Yeah, this is number 2. Number 2 is Nara paper. I don't have a channel for this Nara paper, but I bought this on Amazon. And it's a Nara paper.
Is that the brand name?
Yeah, NARA. And it's fairly reasonably priced, comes in different sizes and packages. Number 3, which I think has been pretty highly successful. You look at what happened with our colors, our blending, our movement. It kind of wanted to say yes to everything. That is Tim Holtz alcohol ink paper, which is Yupo, YUPO paper. Number 4 is from Graphix, GRAFFIX, Graphix paper. And this one is pretty highly recommended. We do have this in the store now, by the way. Graphix paper. We also have Yupo paper. And this one is Canon photo paper. Just regular photo paper like you used to run through your little inkjet printers to print a paper at home. Canon. So I want to try working this just a little bit with a sponge tool and see if, like, this paper will actually be useful for anything. Where did my sponge daubers go? There. So I'm just going to put a felt on my dauber tool. We'll add a little bit of blending solution. Let's see if we can make this ink move. Now I can pick that up. I can make it move a little bit, but notice how darkly it's stained in the back. It's like it doesn't want to fully let go. I can scrub on it a little bit, and it still doesn't let go. So depending on what you're doing with this paper, this may be really limited use. See that? Let's try one of these other ones and see what we can do in terms of just marbling this color.
Mary T.
Hi, Mary T. We're talking alcohol inks today. Now look at the way this one picks up the color. This one is picking the color up off the sheets, moving those whole bands of color around, giving me some interesting marbled patterns. So very, very different than what we saw with the little birdie papers. Even when I have that ink on this dauber now, that just doesn't want to move much, does it? Okay, let's try, that was the NARA. Let's try the Yupo paper and see if we can get some nice marbling out of what we've done here. This paper was kind of manufactured for this purpose. So you can see it's both holding and spreading the color. See that? We've got darker bands and lighter bands, and the more I work it, the more I can make that color really even if I want to. This one here is our Graphix paper. And a little alcohol ink here too. Let's just see if we can spread that color around on here. So I hope you guys find this interesting. I find this really interesting, that the paper will make so very much difference in the outcome of your project and how that paper performs. Sometimes you may be trying to do a technique you've seen me do or seen somebody online do, or you've gone to a class and you're trying to tie a technique that you've seen in class, and it just won't work right. It could be the paper. This Canon photo paper actually performed better today than it did in our first test. The paper is so very important. I was trying to successfully do the reverse. Now look at this though, this is interesting. See how this isn't moving around on the Canon paper? I've got quite a bit of blending solution on there, and I've got plenty of ink on this blender from the other pages, but look at the difference in how that's moving. So I would consider these two papers to be of extremely limited value with my alcohol inks. Let's go through these one more time, and you might want to make a couple notes. This one is a little birdie paper. We sell it in the store, but it's a very limited use, you know? I didn't know that until I tried it. So this is the little birdie paper. It sells for like 50 cents a sheet, 50, 60 cents a sheet. This is the Nara paper, and this is available on Amazon. It comes in all different size sheets, and the Nara paper was generally pretty good performing on most. And the Nara paper, I'm going to say it's in the larger packs, it's about $1 a sheet for Nara. Yupo paper is one of the more expensive ones. Depending on the size of the pack you get, the Yupo paper is about $1 to $1.50, maybe a little bit more expensive than Nara. Graphics we have in the store now, and it also depends on the size of the pack. These three, the Nara, the Yupo, and the graphics paper, are going to be pretty comparable in price. And the photo paper is just some I had sitting around in the office because, like most people who have ever printed a photo at home, we have way more photo paper than we actually need in this household. And then I heard you could use it on alcohol ink, so I had to give it a try. But I hope you find this useful. We got very little movement from the drops themselves, other than this was this paper. All of it has that bend to it.
Catherine asks, could you use that on waxy, shiny bathroom wallpaper?
As long as it's not, you could, as long as it is non-porous. I try it on something to see if it's non-porous. But that's the real trick with alcohol ink, is you want the surface that you're using to not absorb the ink. So surfaces that tend to be good would be glossy cardstock, Yupo paper, and these kinds of plastic sheeting. This is actually what all three of these are, is it's a plastic sheet. And if it's porous at all, the alcohol ink is going to go right through it. It's going to go right through it. So if you've ever noticed, if you were trying to use your color book and color with your alcohol ink pens, if you're coloring in a color book with alcohol ink, unless it's printed on special paper, it's going to go right through the sheet you're working on and 2 more sheets down as you're coloring, because that color is going to absorb down through those porous pages. Okay?
What about Mary paper?
Mary, I think you could do, but you know what? I love an experiment. Bryce just asked, what about Mary? I haven't done it, but I do know that Mary has a plastic coating on it, which would lead me to believe we could successfully do this. So let's just get some on here and try Mary. I like the way it's spreading on there. I think that's interesting. I don't know about fingerprint paper, finger paint paper. Thelma, my guess would be that would be pretty porous. We got Mary board. We've got our.
Does it only work on one side of the sheet?
These papers, the graphics and the Yupo and those that are in plastic sheeting, you can use either side. With the Mary board, you're only going to be able to use one side because only one side is coated. Interesting. I'm adding some blender solution to make my inks more liquid. I think this could be really pretty if we get a good result here. I'm going to use this for something.
Sharma says she loves it on tinfoil.
Oh yeah, tinfoil would be great.
Catherine says on Mary it would be like the Aurora Borealis.
Yes, it would. In fact, that's pretty much what we're getting here.
Silver Mary.
This is Rainbow Mary.
Rainbow Mary.
This is Rainbow Mary. I'm going to add some little cells to my color. See if I can make my color interesting. That did it. Look what happened there. That's really neat now. I like that. You got one more spritz up here in this corner. This is alcohol in my little mini mister tool. I'm going to keep that. I think that's going to be pretty. Now, the interesting thing to me will be how long this takes to dry. It should dry because this is a non-porous paper. It should dry because this is alcohol, and the alcohol should just evaporate right out of the solutions and stuff on this paper because alcohol dries really fast. So, okay, that's it for this experiment. Did you guys have any questions about these paper types? You're going to get different results with different papers. That's my main message. I was trying to be successful with this reverse painting technique I saw online, and I was having a heck of a time until I found the right paper. When I found the right paper, it was great, and I had no more trouble. But this is actually something else I can show you. With alcohol ink papers, I'm going to show you this too because I think this is actually good to know. You can get, depending on which paper you're using, I'm going to cheat and use a paper I know works. With graphics, spraying quite a bit of alcohol in there, and I'm just wiping it off. I can get back to white with the graphics paper. See that? Let's see what happens with some of the others. Let's try it.
Now, is there a way to make it permanent?
To make alcohol permanent? No. Alcohol ink will always, well, there is. Alcohol ink will always react to alcohol. So when I put alcohol ink on a paper, it's going to always be somewhat like watercolor on paper. You add water to watercolor, no matter how long that watercolor's been there, it's going to react to the water and it's going to move. Alcohol ink is the same way. If you add alcohol of any kind, alcohol ink, a blending pen, an alcohol ink pad,
Glass of wine.
Price is a glass of wine. But if you add alcohol of any kind, that alcohol ink is always going to react unless you seal it. And there is a way to seal it. We'll talk about sealing your work here. Okay, let's go to that little birdie paper. You think it'll come off here? I'll put plenty of alcohol on it and we'll see. The paper is totally stained and there's not a chance it's coming off. See that? Even though I sprayed it with the same amount of alcohol I used on the last one, I can't even, I really actually have problems even taking up little dots of color. This is impossible to get back to white. That was our little birdie paper. Let's see. This is my photo paper. Let's try the photo paper. See if photo paper will go back to white. It's not even picking up the alcohol at all. None of the little places around it. See that? Not at all. Not at all. Which is why all these papers that I tried on my reverse painting technique didn't work, because I was trying to get my background to come back to white. This one is Nara paper. Let's see what Nara does. Whoops. Nara paper will not go to entirely white. It'll be a little stained, but I can pick up an awful lot of the color on Nara. That actually is pretty darn white. So I can pick up a lot of it. Here's my graphics versus my Nara. See, it's a little blue cast, but it's not bad. Let's try this one, which is the Yupo paper. The Yupo paper stains a lot. Sometimes the staining's really pretty, by the way. So it depends on what you're doing with things. So out of the 5 kinds of paper, only graphics went back to true white. The Nara paper did a pretty decent job for us. I mean, we got it to a light blue. And the Yupo paper is still badly stained. It lifted the ink, but it's still badly stained. So even among the more expensive brands, there's still variation. Overall, my favorite paper here is graphics because I can do everything with it. It behaves well when I put the ink on it, and it spreads and does some interesting things. I can put the blender solution on it and it spreads and does some more interesting things. Here's my test sheets from our first test. This was the Little Birdie paper. Just did nothing then, does nothing now. This was my Nara paper. And it moved a bit. This was my Yupo paper, and it was really pretty. This was my graphics paper, and we had good results with that. And this was my photo paper. It's kind of like, almost, why bother? Okay, so paper, this, or substrate, this is the material you're working on is called your substrate. And I hope that explanation's useful to you. I thought it was very enlightening to see why I was getting such dramatic, varied results from the different techniques that I was trying. It had everything to do with paper. In those examples, everything else was the same, only the paper was different. So that's interesting. Let's talk about blowing tools a little bit. I think we'll do a short experiment with some black. And I think we're going to use some pearl. I didn't demonstrate any pearl the first time out. So these alcohol inks we've been using are just regular inks. The ones we used for experiment number 1. Just regular inks there. And I wanted to show you what some of the other inks would look like. You hear that little ball in there? The alcohol or the pearl inks have mica in them, pearlescent mica, and it needs to really mix good in order to get the full effects of the pearlescence on your paper. We've got another little felt tool here. Got this pink, what's this called? Enchanted is what this is called. It's pretty. It's very pretty. I don't know if you can see that. Bryce, are you still in here? Bryce went wandering. I'd have him pull in so you could see this working on the paper a little bit. You could actually see the pearlescence glittering around the edges here. I'm going to apply a little mister to it. Now let's talk about using blowing tools. We talked about this at first. blowing tools. Lots and lots and lots of videos and things that you see tell you to use a straw. I'm telling you, don't use a straw. Straws are unsafe for this purpose. Alcohol ink has a toxicity to it. You know, it has toxic fumes. You need to use it in an extremely well ventilated area. I have the window right here behind me completely open. And I'm in big space. And if I were still sensing any problems, I would have a fan going here too. This one is called Splendor. But a straw is not a safe tool. Let me tell you why. When you blow out on a straw, your first inclination after you've blown your breath out is to inhale. And you do not want to inhale this toxic stuff. So straw is not a good tool. You'll see a lot of people talk about doing this with a heat tool, which also kind of makes me cringe a little bit for a couple reasons. One, it makes me cringe because alcohol ink is flammable and heat tools tend to be really hot. So I would hate to think of you burning your house down. So I'm not a big fan of heat tools on here. These little blowing tools are magnificent. They sell for about $10. And we have them in two sizes. We have this size, and we have this one that gives you a little bit more power. I'm going to add a little bit of blending solution to my creation here. So, what can you use? Compressed air in a can. You guys have seen that, like for cleaning your computer keyboard. You can use compressed air in a can. Has a little straw type thing on the end of the barrel where you're applying it to
your solution in the camera.
Can you come in a little bit more on this? I want them to be able to actually see the pearl moving around on this sheet. It's actually pretty interesting. See it moving around on the sheet, guys? Isn't that kind of cool? I think it's cool. Of course, we have always known I am easily entertained. And a hairdryer is not nearly as hot. So a lot of people will use a hairdryer, especially if you have different heat settings. I think a hairdryer might be, I'm trying to show you a hairdryer, but you know what a hairdryer looks like. A hairdryer might be a neat solution. And I'm still playing with, and the jury's still out on this, something that I bought recently that I think could be really cool. This is an air tool. And it has different settings of the air to blow different amounts. Hi, Mary R. Wish I had some purple out here. I don't know what that is. Oh, purple. This is called Intense. I don't know. Might be good. Might ruin everything. Never know. But I do like the pearl on the black. Isn't that kind of fascinating? I've got some strangeness going here. I don't know that this is going to have enough pearlescence to carry the day for this background, but we'll try it. It says it's supposed to be pearl. I don't see a lot of pearl to it. I'll use the Splendor. Spread that out a little bit. It's like a dark cherry. So in substrates, this is a black substrate, black material to work on. There are translucent ones. You can also use this on you can use this on I think I'm going to like this this air tool I bought. This air tool is actually made for cleaning your computer keyboard and not having to reinvest in the cans over and over and over again. But it's got a nice direction to it. It can turn way, way up. I'll blow everything off my desk here with this. I think the setting that I like it at is just barely moving. And then it kind of acts like a blowing tool. One more shot and then I'm going to give up on this pearl paper, but it's been fun just to see what we get. I think we might do one more and use our glittered alcohols so you can see that. It's a very, very interesting composition of pinks and oranges. It actually might be really pretty, cut into like wildflowers or something. I'll have to come up with some use for it. It'll be interesting to see. It's wild. Okay. So I'm going to lift this off. Working here on my glass mat, you want to make sure that you have your work surface protected because alcohol ink is going to stain it. It's going to do it. So the wipes that I'm using today are alcohol wipes, which picks this right up. Pearl, not quite as easily as some of the other colors, I guess, but it does pick it up. And if necessary, I can just pour some straight alcohol on my mat here and it'll pick it right up. And just to keep myself a little bit tidy, I'll clean up some of my mess as I go. Yeah, that pearl takes a little bit more effort to get off. Most of it just wipes off. Okay. All right. Let's try one more black one. Then we're going to move on to something else. This time, I want to try these glittered alcohol inks. This is called Glitter Violet Blue. Once again, they have glitter in them, so I have to shake them up a little bit. And I want you to see these move on the paper. Look at that move on the paper, guys. Isn't that fun? It'll ripple and ripple, and as the alcohol starts to settle out of it, it will stop shimmering quite as much and kind of settle into a color. Now, usually with pearlescence and glitters, you don't get quite as much movement, although I am getting quite a bit of movement here.
It's alive.
One of the things that the glitters like to be used for is they like to be used for kind of pouncing the mediums around and mixing with other inks. So I'm going to get some of this regular alcohol ink here and put a little bit of it down with this. And then we'll kind of pounce around on it a little bit and see what we... And yes, I do have these alcohol inks in the store. We'll see what we get from these colors where they've been kind of pounced around a bit with it. They really like the glitter alcohol inks really like to be mixed with regular alcohol. I think that's actually beautiful. You can't see it at your angle yet, but let me pick this up if I can and show you what this looks like from my angle.
Very cool.
So, glittered alcohol inks. We have pearled ones, we have glittered ones, we have regulars. Everything has its own purpose. The one we haven't tried yet, and we'll do it somewhere along here, is the mixatives. Now, you might be thinking, well, the mixative is going to be a lot like the pearl, right? And it is sort of, except the mixatives are not made to move. They're not made to move the same way that these others do. They're meant to kind of go on in a glob and stay in a glob. So they're not made with movement in mind like some of the rest of these are. So we've tried those. Let's go to a new project. I want to do something I've alluded to you guys. Here's our one from a while ago. All dried now. Isn't that pretty? I don't know what I'm going to use it on yet, but it's going to be gorgeous, whatever it is. What I do with it. Okay, I'm going to cut this piece of paper out because it's pretty big for my demo. Didn't cut it straight, but that's okay. Okay, I have a piece of graphics paper here. Back up a little bit, huh? I'm going to want some greens. Let me go back to my drawer and get some colors out here. And some greens. This is a mixative. I'm not going to put it on this particular one, but this is rose gold, and we'll find a way to use that before long. And this is gold mixative. Here's some green. No, that's purple, like pearl. I actually want green regular. Let's see what we find. Willow. That's a green one. Boysenberry. That sounds beautiful. Sometimes these labels are almost impossible to read. Smoke. Here's a pink. Regular. What I'm looking for this project is regular inks out of this plethora of inks. Pearl. Mineral. Oh, mineral vegetable. Lots of pearls in here now. Didn't have any, but I asked for a few packages of pearls, and I've got pearl. I've got serious pearl. Lots and lots and lots of pearl. want to do a little experiment. Might use some off-brand ink just to get the colors I want. Okay, I'm going to do a little painting here. Just a little, get a little pad on my dauber, and I want to create a background. So I'm going to use some pinks. This technique works better with lighter colors than it does with darker colors that will stain. I'm going to try and go with pink. And I'm going to some nice pinks around here. Add some pinks to that. Is that graphics paper, so it really picks the color and runs with it. I'm really into that orange and pink zone today, aren't I? And I'm going to put a little bit more up here. Now this is going to be some very rudimentary art. I apologize in advance to our art teacher. It's going to be very, very rudimentary art. I don't have time to make it fancy. Now I'm going to take some greens. I'm going to fill in the rest of this with greens. And some, this is willow. It's a really dark green I got there, didn't it? This will be, tone it down a little, kind of a mossy color. Make sure I have plenty of green to work on around the edges here. And now I'm going to kind of mix this up a little bit. And some greens. Just kind of mixing my colors a little bit, adding some nice wide bands of color. And I need to get rid of this pad, get a fresh one, work on my pinks and oranges here. Yeah, didn't mean to do that. Pick that green up and daub it everywhere. I'm going to try and get a little bit more pink and orange back into there because it looks messy now. I'll get a little bit of this back in there. And I'm going to give this a little bit more color again too, after it's been pounced around a bit. I know, you're wondering, what the heck are you up to over there, woman? It's the strangest looking thing I've ever seen.
I like the pinks.
Huh?
The pinks are cool.
Pinks are cool. Blend it a little bit. I still want some of those darker colors, so I might have to put some ink right onto my blender here. I think that's what I'll do. It should give me some nice intense colors to dab into the center there, because I want some intensity to it. When you dab it, it tends to lighten up. But this is good. Getting some intensity right into the color, liking that. Once I have done this, so with your painting, what I want you to do is create two pools of color and a green band between them, okay? Then we're just going to set this off to the side and let it dry until it's completely dry. Now, this is a little darker, these separations that I want. I'm taking some of that brown off. Kind of have a little mud around the corners. I'll take a little bit of that off. All right, I'm just going to set this aside and let this dry, and we will come back to it in a few minutes. Get rid of my soaked blenders. And alcohol wipe and clean up my mess here. Hi, Diane. Good to see you, friend. Oh, it doesn't want to pick up this time. So let's get our alcohol. You want alcohol that's at least 91% isoferol alcohol. And when the other stuff gives me a hard time about cleaning up, I just pour on the alcohol and wipe it all away. Look at that. Just wipe it away clean. This alcohol breaks that stuff right down. Okay, let's talk about, I have another piece of paper here somewhere that I cut a while ago. Here it is. Let's talk about blowing a little bit more of our ink around the place. So blowing the ink can help to create bands of color and textures and things that kind of look like fold lines, which can be fun. We got that deep aqua color. It's pretty. This deep blue. Use just a little bit more ink on my paper and see what we can do blowing this around a little bit. I'm going to put some yellow in there. Maybe. I just didn't want to open. Oh, my applicator tip on this one is all wanky. So I'm starting with more ink on the sheet. I'm going to add even more by adding some blending solution to some of what we've done. And just kind of get things a little goopier than we do sometimes. And what we want to do is we want to get that to move around a little more than what we have done. Push your color the way you want it to go. You can get some beautiful depth of color by doing this. Of course, all my ink is now off my board, which is fine. And you'll see what we've accomplished by putting more ink on our page is that we've got these beautiful pools of color And then we've got places where it's completely blended, and we've got these arches. I'm going to try and put in another arch and see if we can get us a little bit of almost a fold line sort of thing. Let's see what we can do, if we can get that. Let's run out, but it doesn't matter. See if we can get another little bit of ridging or something going on here. But it's fun to get more ink on your paper and just see what you can make it do when you're moving the larger pools of ink. I do love to see what happens when the colors all mix. The more you work it, the more it's going to be uniform color. So if what you're going for is a really nice mix of colors, you probably don't want to overwork it, or you're going to lose all those separations of colors that we were liking. This is more like what you see in some of the books of alcoholic papers, where you see a lot of movement, a lot of things going on at one time. And finding the desire to maybe create some little cells. So I'm going to do that with my alcoholic spritzer. Ooh, I am liking that. It was almost like stained glass. Now it's more like sandy glass. I've got it sealed right down to the table with the amount of ink I had under it. Let's see if I can put this. It's going to not mess everything else up. If those up I have up there are dry, let's put that up there. Okay. Look at this. This just wants to hang on to my board. Interesting. But I know what I can do with it. Just pour a little alcohol in there. It all comes off. Alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, is inexpensive. It does have a lot of fumes to it, so when you pour the bottle like that, be prepared. You're going to get a snout full of fumes. If you are bothered by asthma or COPD or other breathing related issues, I strongly encourage you to use a ventilator when you're doing this. Okay. One of the things I didn't do there that I should have, as I said in my notes, that we wanted to blow the color, but we also wanted to tip our sheet so that we could move the color from one place to another. But you could do that too. All right. Let's see what's next. How is this doing over here? It is largely, but not entirely dry. I think we can go ahead and try our technique on it. This is masking fluid. And the best way to describe it is to say that it's a little bit like using rubber cement. It will dry in place, and then you can roll it off like you would roll rubber cement. I'm going to use this little masking pen. Now, this is an interesting tool. I'm going to show you the end of this. See how it has a little gap at the end? And the amount of the gap is controlled by this little wheel. I can make it very tight, so very little gets through, or I can make it a little bit looser so more comes through. There's nothing to stop this from screwing itself right off of there. And like we did in class the other day, dropping one right down the sink. So use some caution. I think I want maybe a little bit more in my cap here. A little bit deeper pool to draw from. And I'm going to use this as a liner tool. Let's see what happens. The ink gathers in the end of the tool. So we are going to have a very, very, very rudimentary flower here. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to, again, apologies to our art teacher, but this is going to be a very, very, very basic flower. The goal with this fluid is to get as much as you need to create your mask and no more than what you need to create your mask. You don't want it to be really, really thick because then it takes forever to dry. So what I'm trying to do is kind of put up an outline, put an outline in, and then just kind of pull that masking fluid to the center to thin the coat out a little bit. This is going to be a very rudimentary flower. Now I tried applying this masking fluid through the applicator top that you saw in my little bottle there. It actually worked, but I did find that I got a lot heavier coat using the applicator tool than I did by just using this little tool and drying it on. I'm going to draw a little half circle. Believe it or not, people, that's a flower. I'm going to put some little stem in from my flower. I'm going to go down into this green a little bit. And I think I'll draw myself a leaf down here. A little heavy there. A little heavier than I wanted, but okay. Draw some more stem in. Maybe another leaf coming out here. A And maybe bring another leaf out here. From this side. Very, very rudimentary flower. Let that side dry. I'm going to pick this up and turn it around the other way so I can work out here. I'll bring a stem coming up the other way with a nice leaf right here. Bring a stem up here to create a flower on this side. I'll make my flower a little smaller on this side, maybe get a couple of them. And try for 5 petals. I should have had 5 on the other one. Surprisingly, it is easier to control the amount of masking fluid I'm getting using this tool than it is to use the little tip on the bottle. I don't understand it either, but that's what happened. That's your dog. At our first Crafty Friends, just weekly Crafty Friends club meeting last night on Friday. I make it sound like it's some formal thing. It just means that everybody brought what they wanted to work on and we visited while we did it. That was great fun. Bring a stem up through here. Maybe up through here. Get my little flower base there. And petal there, petal there. Again, this is just very, very, very basic. I know that. There's a technique buried in here that I want to show you. It's pretty fun. And it would be worth taking this and doing a really nice job with the design and the masking to make some fun things. I'm going to bring my leaves on up and I think I'm going to be done. Leaf out this way. And I got to let this dry for a while. This masking solution will dry clear. My tool's starting to get a little bit gobbed up, so it's good to be on the home stretch here. You can just wash this tool out at the sink. Very, very, very basic. What would be good would be to use like a very simple stencil. You know, if you were doing a butterfly, for example, you wouldn't want to do a butterfly that had all kinds of markings in the wings. You'd want to have a pretty a pretty straightforward butterfly or that kind of a pattern for this project that we're doing. I want it to be, see, now it's all clean. And I will take the rest of it and pour it back into my bottle. Uh-oh. Thought I was going to turn it upside down there for a minute. But I didn't. Yay me. I'm going to set that aside. And when it's clear, it'll be done. You can see where we started over here on this side that is getting more clear already. See there? I'm just going to set this off to the side for a while and let that do its thing. And you see what else we're supposed to be doing. Okay, we're going to try alcohol liftoff technique while that dries. So what I want to do is I want to get myself a piece of, we'll just use Nara paper. Get myself a piece or two of Nara paper out here. I like these because they're already pre-cut to this size. And I'm going to create a fairly busy mottled background. I think just because of what I'm doing, I want to use some green. And this green and this green. That's yellow, but I can use that. Willow. This one's pretty dark, I think. So let's just get a little ink down on our paper.
Did you answer Mary's question?
What was Mary's question?
So does the masking solution act as a resistant?
Yes. That's exactly what we're going for.
Diane says, how long does the ink take to dry after you apply it to the paper?
The ink, as in the alcohol ink, dries pretty darn fast because it's got alcohol in it, and that alcohol tends to evaporate out pretty quickly, which is also why you want to make sure you recap your bottles.
Like 5-10 minutes and it's dry.
Yeah, generally. And then it depends on how heavy you put it on and things too, you know, because we've had some things we put on pretty heavy. Some nice dark variations of color there. Oops, I'm doing that without a pad on it. Hi, Glenn. Okay, I just want to model this up a little bit. Although I really like the colors that I had. Subduing the colors maybe more than I want, but I'll put more ink on. I did like the colors I had going there. Well, I do like that too. That's actually quite pretty. Look at it. I think that's quite pretty. Okay. So I think I'll put just a little more color in here. Kind of do the same thing I just did and just add some more ink to this. Like the yellows in there. I like that willow color a lot. See how that kind of rings and accumulates the ink around the edges? like this mossy green. I'll put a little bit of this darker one back in too. Just a little bit. I just want to have plenty of ink on my page. Okay. And I'm marbling that up a little bit. I'm going to make sure I have plenty of ink on my page here. Plenty of ink. I got lots of ink on my dauber now. So that's working well. And let's see. Let me get a stamp out here. This is the stamp that came right in my Ranger alcohol ink set. I'm just going to let that dry a minute there. I'll dig in here and get my trees out of my set. I have a little block here. I think I still have those Nouveau blocks on this desk somewhere. I haven't put them away yet. I'll just use this little one for now. It's just a little acrylic block. Put my trees on it. Gotta kind of let this dry a minute. I also want to have a piece of regular cardstock out to accept my stamping when I'm done. I really got it plastered down that time, guys. Move this just a little bit out of the way so I have more room to move here. You're going to go through lots of alcohol inks. And I'm just cleaning off some of this alcohol so I have another place to work here. It wasn't really going to be too pesky because it's pretty dry already. That's probably good enough for now. All right. So I have my green palette that's pretty much dry at this point. That's this one. I have selected a stamp. I have my liftoff ink here. There's a liftoff ink pad and a liftoff re-inker. Open up the liftoff pad. I'm going to apply a little bit of my re-inker to it. Now, you don't need to get all carried away with the amount of re-inker that you use on these guys. Just a nice little squiggly line across. And then if you have an old credit card or a doubled up, tripled up piece of cardstock that you can use, in my case, I'm going to use the edge of my acrylic block. And I'm just going to distribute that ink through my ink pad. Once I've done that, I'm going to get my stamp all inked up here. I'm going to bring my stamped image with the liftoff right into the middle of my image here, and I'm going to push it down a little bit. I'm going to let it sit there for a second. Bring my stamp paper up here. I'm going to lift this image. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to transfer that image. And I've stamped on this paper using ink lifted from my alcohol ink. And I also end up with something pretty cool on the background. This is not the paper I want this paper. I'm using cardstock, in case you wondered, for my lifting for the paper I've transferred that to. Now I'm going to take my lift off ink refill. I'm going to put, now this is important, tiny line, just a little line of this lift off ink across the top of my base sheet here. And I'm going to get a brayer, which I have out here, and I'm going to brayer that ink down over my image. Now I'm going to take a piece of cardstock and I'm going to get hopefully something cool by placing this here. I can brayer over the back of it if I want to, it doesn't matter. I moved it a little bit, so I don't know. No, I didn't get a very good image. I didn't get a very good image because I moved it a little bit. You can actually see it on here better than you can see it on my lift-off sheet. I moved it. But you can tell what the idea was in having that. Actually, I really like this piece, though. I'm going to keep this piece right here. That very rustic tree line back there. This one didn't turn out quite as good. But this one is really, I really like this one. So I got these from my inked sheet with the lift-off ink. Now let's try something different. I want to keep that. I just really like that green one, the way it turned out. This one, not so much, but let's see. We're going to do this time. I'm going to do another one in green, just because of what I have here in front of me. And that dauber from last time still goes chock full of ink, so that's useful. That worked out great, didn't it? Okay, let's get this back in the picture a little bit. We're going to let this one dry a minute. Let that settle. And I'm going to look for, what did I do with my stencil? There's my stencil. I have a stencil. I'm going to put down. I think I left my water bottle over at the table, honey. When you have a second, would you grab it for me, please? I didn't get in here with it. Okay. That wasn't good of me. Okay, I have these veins from a maple leaf. I'm going to put these veins down over the top of that. I'm going to get a different kind of applicator here. This time I'm going to use a foam applicator. I'm going to use some of this lift-off ink. I'm going to put it right on my foam applicator. I'm going to try not to get too busy with it. One of the secrets to this technique right here is don't get the lift-off ink too heavy, because for some reason it takes its own sweet time drying. So a word to the wise, just don't get the lift-off ink too heavy on your applicator tool. Thank you, honey. That's kind of you. Okay. I'm going to lift off my stencil carefully. I'm going to grab myself a piece of cardstock for this process. And I'm going to put it over my pattern. I might rub it a little on the back. Got it moving again. Probably would have been wise to tape it down. And the first one came out a little heavy, but you can see where we're going with that. Let me show you another one that I did that came out a little bit better. This one came out a little bit better. But you can see, sometimes depending on the amount of alcohol or lift-off ink you have on it, it's heavier and lighter. Now, I'm going to add a little lift-off ink to this page. A little lift-off ink up here. I'll brayer it again. Just try and get that ink to go everywhere. Go light with the re-anchor here. Let's see what we get for a transfer image. I don't know what we'll get. You should get a couple of fairly interesting looking layers. Well, that didn't turn out real great, but this one, once again, has some nice lift-off layers on it. What does the lift-off ink do? Does it keep the inks wet? It actually has enough isoferol rubbing alcohol in it. Here's my other one that turned out a little better, but it's got enough isoferol in it that it kind of melts the ink just a little bit. It's not a huge concentration of alcohol, but it melts the ink just a little bit and reactivates it. So here are some of our interesting pieces that we're getting with this liftoff technique. Kind of cool, huh? I like them. This one's not too pretty. I might do something else with that, but I like these. This will take a while to dry. A while as in it might take all day. Because it doesn't have quite as much alcohol in it, and it doesn't absorb quite the same way. Okay, next page here. All right, let's see how we're doing on our drying process. So we are still a long ways from dry here. Well, if it doesn't get dry enough, we'll just look at some finished examples. But this is still drying. You can still see a lot of blue there. See that? So lots of blue. It should turn completely white when it's dry. So we'll let that continue doing its thing. I got to show you something really cool. I have to show you something really cool. And that means I got to get another box of supplies down. Hang on one second. I'm leaving you just for a fraction of a second. Because I think my box is right up here. I want to show you how to make something magnificent. Here's I have something very fun to do. But I just realized I'm missing an important component. Bryce comes back. I'll have to send him in search of. Who else put stuff away in here? They don't always put them away in a manner that allows me to find them. So my guess is that my hairspray that I'm looking for is probably in the bathroom. It's not where I would put the hairspray because I would never use it on my hair. But these are mica. I have these great big old containers because I bought it from a company that was going out of business, and this was the same price from them that the little tiny Pearl-Ex containers are other places. And here are some beautiful, beautiful micas. And you know that mica pearl powder, look and see if the hairspray is in the cupboard in there, please. My hairspray has disappeared. Mica is a naturally occurring material in nature. It's a rock that is layered and it's clear. Well, but it can have lots of inclusions. And you can actually peel that rock back. And that mica is what they use to create, thank you very much. It's what they use to create. Now, do you see any little sprayer bottles, any little bottles of any kind that are empty? I should have, maybe I have an empty one. I went over here. Let's see. This should work. This should work. I got a little bottle. I'm going to take some of my mica powder. Yeah, let's use that blue color. A bit of my mica color. I'm going to use for a spoon here. That's going to be my biggest challenge. Maybe I'll make it in a cup. I'll make it in a cup and then transfer it to my little container. I'm going to put a little bit of mica powder in my cup. I'm going to put, I got that blue mica everywhere. But then again, you guys know me. You know that happens with me. So there's no real surprises here, are there? Yeah, mica is what's used in face makeup. Yes, it is. It's used in eyeshadow and all kinds of face makeups. It's also what makes pearlescent powder pearlescent. It's used as a colorant, and you wouldn't even believe the number of things it's used in. Okay, now I'm going to put a little bit of my rubbing alcohol in here. And then I'm going to mix it. I have a pipette here. I'll use as a mixer. And, I need way more alcohol. I got kind of carried away on the amount of mica. Let's just put some more alcohol in here. Rubbing alcohol and mica together in a container. Mix it till it's nice and smooth. Put these in my way so you guys can't really see what I'm doing. And we end up with an alcohol ink-like substance here. But alcohol and mica alone will not stay on my plastic. It needs a binder. And that is where this hairspray comes in. I'm going to pour a little bit of hairspray in here to act as a binding agent, which will allow the mica with the alcohol to stay on the paper. Now I'm going to put that in this bottle and we're going to make something out of it, which will be cool. Pull it up in my pipette and it'll go right into my little bottle. Hate to waste it, so I'm picking up as much of it as I can and putting in my little mixing bottle. Put my end back in it. Let's get a piece of paper here to try this on, and let's try our homemade alcohol ink. I'll get a little something else here and put in it too, maybe. I'll use another pearlescent with it just to see what we get. A Manara paper. It does make a difference in how it blends. I'm going to put a little blender solution in there. Debbie is like a mad scientist over here. That is absolute truth. I meant to show you a while ago how we can tip and turn and create patterns in this by just tipping our paper. And I didn't do that, so I'll do that now. Letting these colors run and run together and mix up and create prettiness. Okay, I want to, I think I want to pounce this a little bit, just see what it does. Your dog again. He's out at the path, barking at all the passers-by. So I bet you didn't expect when you got up this morning to learn how to make homemade alcohol ink. But that's exactly what we just did. Now this is interesting that we're getting kind of a layer of, it's actually quite interesting. We're getting kind of a layer of powder that didn't mix enough, so maybe I didn't mix it quite enough over there. But it is an interesting concoction. I'll put some more of that on. I do kind of like this little flakiness stuff I've got going on in here. A little darker blue. Kind of reminds me of when we put salt in it. You can actually see the mica dispersing as it moves around the paper there. A little blender solution to move this a little more. You'll go through a lot of blender solution. That's a good thing. It's not expensive and it... Okay, gotta try my little heat tool again. I am getting to a point where I'm finding it easier to manipulate this tool and not have it load quite so much. Get some neat ink patterns going here. Oh, I said we'd use mixatives before we were done. We'll put some mixative on here so you can see what mixative does as compared to what the other inks do. Unless you put it on with quite a lot of blender solution, mixatives just want to stay where they're put. We haven't put it on yet though, so.
Play your cards right, you might make pansies. Catherine says maybe hydrangea.
Oh yeah, that would be beautiful, wouldn't it? Yeah, this would be an absolutely gorgeous hydrangea blossom cut out of this. I'm liking that. I like that a lot. But we are going to put some mixative on it just because I promised you we would. So we've got gold there. We've got rose gold here. I think the rose gold might be interesting. I don't think our art is going to be done in time to take that off, but I will. I've actually already shown you. You just didn't know what I was doing. Some of what we are going for when we finish with the masking solution and it's dry. See, these don't move a lot. They're not intended to move a lot. They're much heavier, and they just kind of drop where they are. You can move them a little bit and get interesting textures, but it takes more effort to move the mixatives because they're kind of intended to just create metallic places. But I can spread it out a little bit. I actually like this a lot, guys. This is our mix between our homemade mica powder in our little squeeze bottle, our homemade alcohol ink, and our prepared alcohol ink. I think that's really pretty. Isn't that fun? Okay, let's figure out what we're going to do about this other project we had going. I'm going to clean up my mess here a little bit. Did you guys know you could make your own alcohol inks? Isn't that kind of a fun secret that you can make those? So I'll just put this right into the drawer with my alcohol inks now. Cap up my bottles so they're not going dry on me, as alcohol does, in fact, disperse quickly. Toss out our blender sponge. Put this cap back on here. Wipe off our table, and we'll bring in our mask that's not going to be dry in time. But we'll talk about it. Bring it in and talk about it. Wipes. I want to go in your suitcase, Catherine. Scotland sounds pretty fun. It's on my list of places I would like to see. I have tried it in the first class. I think we did some of that, Catherine. But yeah, plastic wrap, you can scrunch it up. Another thing you can do with plastic wrap is you can take your paper, lay it down, put a few bubbles of ink here and there, then like plastic wrap over the top of it and just pull and push the plastic wrap in different directions to get a different. Oh, you're going to be living in a place called Kelso. That's my hometown, Catherine. I grew up in Kelso, Washington. Okay, let's bring this one back in and see what's happening. No, I have not been to Hawaii, Mary. I have never been to Hawaii. Okay, this is not drying fast. It's way more humid today than it has been, and that makes a difference. And I think I got my stuff on just a little dark. But let's just talk about where we would go with this if this were dry, because we're running out of time here. Here are some examples using the same funky type flowers and leaves. Here's one I did that's all leaf. This was entirely dark green. I masked the leaf pattern. I poured alcohol over my cardstock or over my substrate. I cleaned all the old alcohol off, and then I rubbed off the masking fluid, and I got the leaf pattern. This is one, another one that I did. These are funky. I told you they are. It's just quick art. Little branch. There you go. So I like the variations and the browns and stuff in the background of this. I thought that was fun. Now, this is on graphics paper where it will go clear to white. When I pour the alcohol over this paper, it will go clear back to white. But some papers don't do that, and I actually found that's actually pretty cool. Here's one I did on, I think this is Nara paper, I'm not sure. I did this on Nara, and when I took the, you can see the brighter parts where I had it masked. And when I took the masking solution off, it's brighter in those areas, but it's stained the background, and I love the way it looks. Isn't that fun? Very basic art, but, and this is supposed to be somewhat like what we just did, but mine's not going to dry in time. So, and again, this is on Nara background paper, so it stained the background. It didn't come completely to white, but I do think that having the stained backgrounds can be really, really pretty. Really pretty. Okay, so that is our reverse painting technique. I'm sorry that I didn't get this done early enough. I should have made another sample that we could have used, but in any case, maybe I can just cut a corner off of this, and let's see if it's done enough. I'm not even sure it's done enough, so I'm not sure I'm going to get anything worth having, but since I made this specifically for you guys, if it doesn't work out, then we'll know. I have a little part that looks like it's more dry here than the other. So let's just cut a piece out of this. And we're going to use some alcohol. I'm going to put alcohol right onto my design. I'm going to use a piece of paper towel. I'm going to sponge the ink right off of my design. This is graphics paper, so I can get awfully close to white. It may not go completely white, but I can get very close to white. Wiping off all the extra. Oh, this is going to work okay. Wiping off all the extra. So it's a reverse painting technique. You're covering the entire surface with your ink, then coming back and removing everything that is not masked. Then when it comes time, I'll get this dry again. Okay, so I got it dry again. And then I'm going to take my glove off for this. This is like when you were a kid peeling rubber cement, except you're not going to eat it now. You might have eaten it then. Don't eat this. And we're going to come in and we're going to peel off. Oh, I didn't have much color under this. Well, you're still getting the gist of things. It probably wasn't dry enough for me to be doing what I'm doing. See, it wasn't dry enough, and the masking fluid just picked up all the color. But you still see what we're going for I haven't seen it yet, Mary. But you still see what we're going for. And so we'll call that good. We'll call it good, even though it maybe wasn't quite so good. But again, you can get some really fun patterns by doing that reverse painting technique. So try that. It's fun. Try it with the graphics paper. It's the only one that will go to white. But then try it with some of the others too and just see the staining techniques you get. Okay? Let's talk about what we've done today, because we've been at it for 2 hours and we have done a lot of stuff. First thing we did today was to compare substrates. Substrates is just a fancy way of saying the material on which we're applying our alcohol inks. We tried 5 kinds. We found out that the one from Little Birdie and the photo paper were of questionable value, but we found out that the Yepo paper, the Nara paper, Nara from Amazon, and the graphics, which we have, were really good papers by comparison. Those are in somewhat the same price range, but the larger the pack you buy, the less you pay per sheet. We finished those. We did our little drying for our masking, but we didn't finish that one in time. We talked about the tools for blowing. We talked about the little hand blowers. We talked about hair dryers. This is not a bad tool. A hair dryer is not a bad tool. Just don't get it too hot because you can melt the substrate and make it all crinkly, which isn't really where you want to go. We recommend these. These are very, very good. We sell these. And I don't have these in stock right now, but I have a couple of local customers who've asked me to get it. Based on today's experience and being able to actually use this tool without blowing stuff all over the desk, I think I will get some and bring them in. That'll be about $40. So if you're interested, you'll be able to pick one of those up from me. And then it has all kinds of little adapter tools that go on it. But this is turning out to be a pretty satisfactory tool. In addition to talking about how to blow ink, we've done some things using higher amounts of ink. This one actually still has some wet spots on it. This is that last one we did because we had a lot of ink on the paper and it's taking a little longer to dry. This one that we made earlier, it still looks like it could be wet in places. We did some wild and crazy stuff on black. We tried putting alcohol ink on Miri, and I think we did that quite successfully. We used lift-off inks to have our forest scenes and then our kind of rough forest background. We also made these are still sticky. I told you this takes forever to dry. But we made these leaves by using lift-off ink on a blender. Go very light with the lift-off ink, guys. It really takes a long time to dry. But it is a fun and interesting tool to use. Okay, we made our own alcohol ink. We tried working with the glitters. And we've just generally had a pretty good time. What kind of questions do you guys have for me at this point in time? What didn't I answer for you? I'm going to give you a couple minutes to get me your questions because there's bound to be things you guys still have questions about. Oops, that's not the right drawer. Not the drawer I wanted. We used a variety of different tools, including foam tools, which I didn't even know you could use on this, but you can use it with the lift-off inks, the foam tools. We used our blender sponges and our felt sheets. Toss away the one that had the lift-off fluid on it. We used our brayer to use our lift-off ink. Oh, good, Mary, I'm glad you brought that back up. Sealing it. There are a variety of ways that you can seal alcohol ink. And because alcohol ink, you want 91% or more isopropyl alcohol, Mary. The 70% stuff will work a bit, but it just is not even comparable to the 91 or more. So the higher the alcohol content, the better for your projects. So when you go to seal it, you need to know that if I've hung this up in a light place, within a few weeks we would already begin to see fading, and it would fade away to nothingness in no time at all. You'd just be surprised how the sun can just strip alcohol ink of its properties. So you do want to seal it. You can seal it to some extent with hairspray. Just spraying a couple nice coats of hairspray on it. Light coats, and then use more than one. So hairspray helps some. But there's also, can you hand me, oh, you've got your thing in your, there are some commercial products that are very good for this. There, over here in the paints. Let's see what Margie did with them over there. There are some commercial products that are very, very good. I think it's the cans laying down on top, probably. Yes. Okay. You can use UV, it's archival from Krylon. And there's another Krylon can laying down over there. It's to the left, I think. And UV resistant clear. This is the one that will keep it from washing out. And then another thing you can do with these alcohol inks is you can cover them in resin. I know that's a big job in and of itself, but I just felt compelled to say you can cover alcohol inks in resin and get really spectacular results. So that's how you seal it. So I'm glad you brought that back up because I had promised to talk about that later. All right. If you are not a subscriber to our channel, hit that subscribe button. We're doing fun stuff here all the time, and you don't want to miss a single chapter of what we're up to. And for those of you who are regular viewers, if you'd hit that like button, that would make me happy. I love to see that. It makes me feel good, and it also helps direct YouTube where they want to send new viewers. And finally, if when we are done here and we sign off, which we're going to do momentarily, there's a little refresh button at the top of your screen. I'd love for you to give me any reactions that you have to class today. And once again, those help YouTube to know where to direct new customers based on the reactions of the people who are watching the videos. So that's all good. I appreciate it very much. And we haven't seen, thank you, Mary R. Thank you, Irene. I think we're going to go ahead and sign off for now. Next week, I believe we're going to be doing a fabulous lilac class. Yeah, it's a little late for lilacs, but you know, it's beautiful purple flowers. What can I say? I love them, therefore we're doing them. So I think that's what we have on the agenda for next Saturday. Wednesday, we'll be back with What's New Wednesday. And do not forget, guys, this is really, really important. I have the best sale out there on Craft Perfect paper you will ever find. Half off of mirror board, half off of pearlescent paper, half off of cardstock, half off of the specialty papers and the embossed papers. It's the very first category in our store. Go get that. That is good stuff, and that is worth way more than I'm selling it for. So be sure you get yourself a nice selection, especially of mirror board, because you will love having that on hand. And if there are no other questions, comments, or pearls of wisdom, I'm going to say good night, Gracie.